reconvene the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee this evening at 7 p.m. Present are committee members Williamson, Mannon, and Glassburn, council members Gilchrist, Heeman, Lindbergh, and Scarrow, our mayor, law director, the directors of human resources, economic development, safety, service, rec, and our special assistant to the mayor. And yes, on the agenda first is resolution 2023-16, which is a resolution adopting the Cuyahoga County 2022 to 2027 all hazards mitigation plan and further directing the implementation thereof and declaring an emergency.
Who would like to speak to this?
Director Schofield.
Opposite direction. Hello. I'm going to do seats. So 2023-16 is adopting the county's all hazards mitigation plan. This, from what I understand, is a fairly routine practice. It's a plan that must be updated every 5 years as a requirement from FEMA, and then each county submits their updated plan to the state. As you might imagine, each year in the United States, disasters takes the lives of hundreds of people and injure thousands more, as well as destroy or severely damage existing buildings, structures, infrastructures, and other facilities. Taxpayers pay billions of dollars annually to help mitigate and to help communities when these events do occur. So the purpose of this plan is to help reduce the community burden from the effects of all these hazards. And they are addressed in this 2022 to 2027 plan. It addresses such topics such as health-related emergencies, as we recently experienced with COVID-19, hazardous materials release or spills, IT communication disruption, transportation incident, climate change, civil disturbance, and an active shooter or mass casualty event. There have been 19 federal disaster declarations in the county since 1953 due to these types of events, most recently with COVID-19. And these recorded events help provide a blueprint for the plan that's been developed by the county. The plan itself is actually 445 pages long. And the expectation from the county is that all of the 59 cities adopt this plan, and then they can send it all forward to the state as the county plan. So what's in front of you is a request to sign off on the county's all hazards mitigation plan, and in doing so, this will allow us to receive funding from the county in case an emergency does happen here in North Olmsted, where we need financial assistance to rebuild, repair, respond, that type of action.
Director, you were going to give out copies of that plan to each member tonight?
I'm sure, I have it in my pocket. I'm happy to share the PDF with you if you so desire to read. That's the 445 page plan.
Are there any questions from committee? Mr. Glassburn.
As tedious as it sounds, I would like to see the PDF because otherwise we're voting on something we've not seen.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Council?
I would just
Okay. Let the record reflect that our finance director is here. Okay. Director, you can get that out to all council.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we'll see no further questions. I will make a recommendation to adopt resolution 2023-16 and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Mann. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes with a vote 8-0. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-17, which is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with Pathmaster Incorporated to install Glance GPS preemption and priority traffic control signalization systems through the state purchase program at a cost of $305,635 in approved ARPA funds, and upon approval of the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to execute contract documents and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chair.
Thank you,
I
Director.
would be happy to address 2023-17. As you just referenced, this was already reviewed during the ARPA planning process. This GPS system will be installed on top of the existing system that we have that is triggered more by sirens versus GPS. This was a system that was installed several years ago. It was funded by NOACA. NOACA only allowed for this kind of audible type system. The leadership teams in public safety and public service believe that the GPS system will be more effective and provide greater traffic control in the event of emergencies, which happen on a daily basis, and will provide for better safety not only for the general public, but for our first responders and for our snowplow drivers during bad storms. So the GPS system can be activated in those instances as well. The plan that we have forward will impact 16 intersections, and the system will be installed here internally by our fleet management team on 37 vehicles, including the snowplow trucks. Both Applied Information Inc. and Pathmaster are on the state bidding list, and Pathmaster is the only authorized distributor for this product in Ohio.
Thank you, Director. Is emergency or suspension being requested for this, or is there any kind of time frame as to when?
No, this can go through the regular process. I've been in touch with Pathmaster to keep them updated. I spoke with the gentleman today and told him we'd be ready to go after third reading.
Okay, but with the fluctuating prices, we're not gonna lose this
No.
price mark? Okay,
No.
great. Okay. And then will all of the police vehicles be equipped with this? Because you said 37 vehicles and that includes the snowplows, so.
Not all of them. The Chief Wagner said not all of their vehicles need to be equipped. Like his won't be equipped with it. Like the Detective Bureau cars won't be equipped with it. So it's primarily the patrol cars, the engines and squads, and then the 8 fire trucks.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Any questions from council? Or, I'm sorry, committee? Council? Okay, seeing none, then I will make a motion to recommend approval of council for an ordinance 2023-17 and ask for a second. Seconded by Councilman Madden. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes with a vote of 3-0. Our meeting concludes at 7:08 p.m. Thank you.
I will start the Building Zoning Development Committee meeting on February 14th, 2023 at 7:09 p.m. Present are committee members Limbert, Williamson, and Heeman. Council members Gilchrist, Glassburn, Madden, Williamson, Scarl, the mayor, law director, finance director, HR director, economic director, safety director, service director, recreation director, and special, man, we have a full house tonight. On the agenda are a few items, resolution 2023-13, which is for school demolition bids, ordinance 2023-18 to amend 1118.13, and case number 22-21179, low cost pharmacy. We'll start with school demolition bids. Mr. Upton, are you gonna handle that?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. The 2023-13 authorizes myself on behalf of the administration to go out to bids for the lowest and best bidder for the demolition of the Forest and Spruce Elementary School properties. Happy to answer any questions as it relates to the approval or the authorization to bid this work.
Do we have an expectation of when the work would start following? How long it would take for the bid process and then when the work would start?
As in discussing it with the law director, demolition is a capital improvement. We're improving the city-owned asset as being real property. And as such, it's 3 weeks and 30 days in the bid process. So we hope to have these properties down sometime in the fall completed. The scope is demo, grade, seed, straw, leave a patch of grass for a school and split. And that includes parking lots, curbs, all of the opportunities that are part of the school property itself.
Does that include any underground demolition?
Footers and whatnot, yeah, that would be to essentially deliver a clean patch of grass.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, thank you. So it does have declaring an emergency on here, but we would ask that you amend that to remove that, because it's a capital improvement that doesn't allow for that, so.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from committee? Ms. Heeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have a plan that, you do a demolition of one first and then the second, or company will do both of them at the same time? Or just whatever order they think the bid process and planning works?
I mean, our goal would be to ideally contract with one firm to realize economies of scale, and it just would be a matter of capacity if they wanted to do both at the same time. But I would imagine they would take the path of least resistance and do worse first and then move on from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from committee? Questions from council? Mr. Glassman?
Thank you, Mr. Lippert. So with the former forest property, especially the school being multi-story and kind of built into a hill, is there any leveling that will happen as a result of this, or?
Like changing the grade of.
Yeah, regrading, I guess maybe is the right way to say it.
Well, grading in so much as they will put dirt back where the footers once were and will be flatbed in terms of changing the grade of the surrounding, hills and topography.
Will when you say it will return to being a piece of, or patch of grass, will it be seeded with grass?
Correct. Demo grade seed and straw.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have,
Go ahead, Ms. Gomez.
with the surrounding communities and the residents that live there, are there any precautions that are gonna be taken to protect them from the dust?
Typically, what happens is they'll have a crewman on the ground that they'll tap into a fire hydrant and they will be spraying water on the building as it's being torn down in sections. That's usually what happens, whether it's a single family home or a hospital or anything.
Mr. Carl?
Thank you. Mr. Chair. Director Upton, is the asbestos going to be removed from all that, those schools before that's torn down?
And so prior to doing, coming before you seeking this authorization, we did our environmental due diligence, and what was identified as needing to be removed is what's called class 1 friable. In other words, if it breaks, it goes into the air particulates. That will be, it's considered regulated asbestos containing material. It will be abated and sent to a specialized landfill prior to, and that will be part of the specifications of the demolition. And all firms that work in Northeast Ohio are familiar with asbestos abatement prior to it.
Thank you.
Ms. Gomez, go ahead.
Are we gonna let our safety forces use the buildings in order to practice before they're demolished? And perhaps areas?
Mrs. Chairman, to the councilwoman, Director Schofield already has scheduled a very large safety activity in April of this year, so not just North Olmsted, but really Northeast Ohio. Both police and fire are being invited here to North Olmsted to participate in that. And yes, we've made that available and made that known to the safety forces from the beginning.
One other note, and I don't think this would be as significant as what they did with the middle school or high school, but they saved a few bricks for people to be able to pick up, or offered a time window where people could pick up some of the demolished building as like a keepsake. And it would be just interesting to work with that, with whoever wins the bid, to see if there's some opportunity. I don't think it's gonna be as big a scale as this middle school, but they did offer that. I think that would be something to make sure that the contractor could plan.
Certainly would work with whomever, the contractor, shut the equipment down for a few hours and allow folks to do that. Should there be a desire, we would definitely communicate with the residents of those neighborhoods.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend 2023-13, ask for a second.
Second.
Hold on, correction, 2023-13 as amended, removing the emergency clause, and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Next on the agenda is case number, ordinance 2023-18 to amend 1118.13. Mr. Upton, are you handling that as well?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The amendment to 1118.13 establishes an additional set of criteria under the conditional use of a tattoo, body branding, hookah lounges, drug paraphernalia, smoke shops, or similar, to add an additional condition that such uses should not be located within 2,500 feet measured lot line to lot line from the nearest place of worship, park, recreation center, school, or daycare facility. The zoning code charges us with ensuring that uses are compatible and harmonious, and as such, drug paraphernalia, the shops and the like, we don't feel need to be located near communal places, places of worship, or places where our kids attend daycare or go to school. And so that's why we are asking to amend this particular section of the conditional use threshold that we evaluate these proposals. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, first, any questions from committee? Ms. Williamson, go ahead.
Mr. Chair. Director, I'm assuming the ones that are already,
They'll have a
Agreed.
pre-existing non-conforming status, yes.
but if they were to move, say, from one storefront in the same complex to another, would that be prohibited?
They would have to, once they move, and this is subject to be overruled by the law director, but once they move from one building, say they move from unit B to unit D, they need a new certificate of occupancy for unit D, which would require me to evaluate on that threshold, and if for some reason they violate any one of those terms, they would be subject to it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think this happened before, but there's still variance options that could come before council if somebody was looking to move from one unit to the next within the.
They would have to display a hardship that would compel the various boards and commissions, and then obviously this body to agree with that hardship and allow for it.
Okay. Any other questions from committee? Questions from council? All in favor, excuse me, from that, I'll make a motion to recommend the changes to ordinance 2023-18 to amend and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, and to be clear, that was the amended chapter, not amending the ordinance for that vote. And then the last is case number 22-21179, low cost pharmacy. And Mr. Upton, do you want to go through the the case there and the recommendations?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This particular case that you have before you originally had the ability to be reviewed under the administrative process. However, in determining the options in which I had to review this, it was my view that there was a significant impact to surrounding property owners, and as such, the development should be reviewed through the city council review process, which is why it is before you today. We worked with the applicant for nearly a year on this process, went through 4 different iterations of stacking arrangements with respect to the vehicles. The first arrangement had stacking in front of the storefronts. That was deemed unacceptable. The second arrangement had them stacking behind the dumpsters or in the rear of the building. Also deemed that that was unacceptable. And so this third arrangement calls for a reconfiguration of the parking, restriping of the parking lot, and kind of a, for lack of a better term, a slip lane stacking, which our former engineer DeFranco, found that to be acceptable and recommended to PDC that of the options that were presented to this applicant in this case, this would be an acceptable drive-through option for the low-cost pharmacy.
Thank you, Director. So, do we know how, I read in the note that it was gonna they were recommending removing those parking spots to open up the ability to turn it. Do we have any concerns about the parking capacity there?
The property itself has enough parking, and the removal of the parking spots does not necessitate a variance.
Okay.
However, Engineer DeFranco at the time determined that this was the most acceptable outcome. I think it's debatable whether or not this arrangement doesn't adversely impact the surrounding business owners. It is a significant reconfiguration of the parking in an area in which is very busy in terms of a parking lot as it is. You have the BMV, the title division's right there. It's a really heavily trafficked parking lot, so I think on balance, those are considerations where our department doesn't have a strong recommendation that this ultimately is something that ought to be approved by council.
And we heard from police or through building of complaints of the other residents in that center not having parking for their properties based on
We've noticed everyone they went before planning commission twice, and all the adjoining property owners received notice. We didn't have anyone come up to planning commission voicing an objection. So you take that for what it's worth. We didn't receive any correspondence objecting to this arrangement. And so that's ultimately why the planning commission decided to make a recommendation that this be acceptable to them and pass it along to this body.
And I'm not as familiar with the store itself, but is it just strictly a pharmacy, or is it a purchase goods type store as well?
A little bit of both. It's a small storefront. There is some, pharmacy goods like ibuprofen, Ace wraps, and sort of like that on a few shelves, but mainly it is primarily a pharmacy. I know that they have I believe they have a nurse practitioner on staff there that can see people in a pinch. I do also want to note that the main objective with this is so that the drive-through window is constructed in such a fashion where they literally put a window on the existing wall. They don't have to put a vacuum tunnel or anything like that you'd see at a CVS or a Walgreens or Walmart or any of the big box pharmacies, so to speak.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Ms. Thompson.
Director, where is the driveway entrance? Is it along the window line?
I mean, so are you talking the curb cut driveway?
Yes.
So it's off of Brook Park and it's off of Dover Center.
Right, no, but I mean, on Sparky, it's lane,
That's,
Right there.
so the vehicles would come in here and then pull up.
vehicles are coming off of Brook Park, just, either this way.
I'm like totally confused.
Brook Park essentially.
Right.
Dover Center. Here's the curb cut.
Oh, okay, so they go in this way and
So
around.
this part of it become, eliminate it right here.
Nope, go ahead here.
This would be remarked. It's
Okay, perfect, so it's not like they would be,
the previous two drawings that we saw, one was doing it this way, coming up here, and we said that was unacceptable. The other one was to stack behind the buildings.
yeah,
We also said that was unacceptable.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Do we have any concerns about them stacking? Is there still concern then that they're gonna stack? But you hadn't heard complaints from the residents?
We have not heard complaints from adjoining property owners. Is there concern that, you know, a lot of sick kids might be out there these days and there's 6 cars stacked up and it might disrupt parking? Yes. Right, so this is the most acceptable option of 3 not so good options.
The only other question I had was on the Brook Park, you know, there's 2 entryways. One of them is what would, you know, would look like you'd have to drive around the whole building, this entryway, right? Is there gonna be any signage to say that that's not like a pharmacy entrance? That's an entry point, right?
Correct, that's an existing.
But that's not something, yeah, so there's entryway there, and then there's entryway down here, right? But we don't want people coming in this way for a pharmacy, right? They're gonna have to,
Scan terribly.
yeah.
So you're talking about putting signage right here so that you can't go into the
I mean, was
pharmacy.
there any recommendations on that? Because what's gonna happen is people are gonna come in here and then they're gonna be on the wrong side. I guess they can drive all the way around again, but you're just basically having people come in to cut through where people are gonna be exit, right? Cause you want people to come in through.
I mean, they can come in through either way. They can come in through and kind of
Yeah.
cut in this way with these folks, or they can come around and stack, right? Those are the 2 options. Or they can come a long way in and right here.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is the most acceptable of 3 pretty not so good options, which is ultimately why I made the decision to put this through a city council review process. So I had 3 or 4 public meetings to discuss this because it stands to reason that this stacking.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the planning commission, anybody recommend as far as
Signage,
to not have people, I don't want people
no.
come in here, they're just gonna cause a big bottleneck of
Right,
cars trying to leave. If they come in here, they're gonna have to go all the way around here, or go
Potentially,
all
they
the way
could,
around
they
here.
could come all the way out
And
this way, right?
right, but you wouldn't want them you'd want that as an egress, not an ingress to the pharmacy. Right, like you want cars leaving this way or coming in to go park for these other businesses.
Ideally, yes, or if they're gonna come in this way to go to the pharmacy, you want them hanging left and going around.
Yeah, I guess I'm just asking, what are our options as far as signage or recommendations for signage that they encourage us not to be a pharmacy drive-through entrance, or not an entrance for the pharmacy, right?
I mean, suppose we could we could condition some directional signage that would indicate that the pharmacy drive-through has
Yeah.
to go that way.
Well, that's what I'm.
My picture's different than yours.
Are you,
Right
Cause
here.
it comes in
This
this
is what we're
way
talking
and
about.
goes around, right?
it could come, so this didn't scan very well at all, actually. But they could come here,
To go here and there's.
they can come here, right?
Okay, yeah, it
So
doesn't
we're-
pick up in this. Okay, so they can come in this way then and come
I
through.
don't know what case file, that's the tabled case file, you don't have the finished case file, which is this PDF
Okay.
that you should have gotten.
Okay.
So you have the table, you have the table from September 14th, that's why you're seeing something different.
Okay,
That'd
well,
be a
that's what
table
was in
in
the,
It's in the same email, it's just a different file
Okay.
attached to that email.
Right there, it's under your hand. The folded one.
alright. This is what I get for using the Dropbox. Alright, so, here you go.
It comes in here. That's why I was trying to from here.
Stats. Okay, alright, well then that's fine, I withdraw my comment on the signage then. Okay, any other questions from committee or council? Yeah, Ms. Heeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the new drawing, there is signage and, there were no objections, when I was at planning commission. The other thing that I can tell you is that these are typically small establishments. They don't draw like the CVS, they don't draw the CVS, the drug mart, that kind of traffic. They have a very niche market, and that is why they're called low-cost prescriptions. They really serve, a specific population, if you will. And they're just not a large retail establishment to draw, the number of cars and volume that you might be thinking if it were
Yeah.
a CVS or Walmart.
Thank you, Ms. Heeman. Yeah, my biggest concern is this is not an easy drive to come into anyway, with the way the parking is. It may look fine on this, but if you've ever tried to pull in there, it's very hard to even get through when another car's coming another direction. So that's my concern, if it being only one car, it's just not easy to navigate between here from where the car's going in two different directions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Under 1126, like I said, this normally would be reviewed under an administrative process, but my determination was that there would be impact on surrounding property owners, and as such, I could change the path of the approval, which is why, again, we went through the 2 planning commission meetings and then ultimately review of this committee such that it gave the public an opportunity to comment on it. And as the councilwoman stated, we did receive no objections at the council meeting or via correspondence to Clerk Jones when she was clerking both the September meeting as well as the December meeting, and this was ultimately recommended favorably by planning commission.
Any other questions? Any question from council? Go ahead, Ms. Gilchrist.
I went over there today and looked at the parking lot and the surrounding things and watched the flow for a little bit. And I was wondering if these parking spaces here in area 42, these 7 or 8 that's under the block, would they be kept or would they be gotten rid of?
No, these are all.
Okay, alright, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions or concerns, make a motion to recommend case 22-21179 low cost pharmacy. Ask for a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 3-0, and I'll conclude the building zone development committee meeting at 7:34.
I'd like to, call to order the Recreation, Public Parks and Buildings Committee meeting at 7:34 p.m. Present are all committee members, all council members. Absent is Mr. Broussard, and I think every director is here, and including, Mr. Smith from Springdale, and Ms. Hunt from the Senior Center. On our agenda this evening is 2023-5, 2023-14, and 2023-15. We will take them in the order as they are on the agenda. 2023-5. resolution authorizing the Director of Recreation and Public Engagement to solicit bids for Springvale Golf Course, and upon approval of the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder and declaring an emergency. This resolution is with regard to a piece of equipment at Springvale which fertilizes the golf course. It was discussed in our budget, but I think that we were expecting a state bid. Director Pinchuk, would you like to address that for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were expecting a state bid, but due to a mishap in the quote, it was determined that it was best to go out to bid for this piece of equipment. So it's replacing a sprayer that is aging and old and is on its last legs. And so we are requesting that we get approval to go out to bid for replacement of this sprayer.
Director, would you give us an estimate, please, of what your expectation of the cost of this piece of equipment will be?
So when we initially were looking for state pricing, it was coming in the range of $77,000 to $87,000 for our two quotes that we did receive. So somewhere in there is the expectation.
So that has not changed initially from the budget process discussions?
Right.
Okay. And then what do we expect, and perhaps if you, Brad, please jump in, you know, from the time that then we have a bid to we say, okay, this is what we're gonna purchase, when does delivery happen? How long is that taking now with this type of equipment?
Well, just to give you, for example, the two sprayers that I'm interested, one's from Toro, Jerry Pate, the other one's from Smithco/Baker Vehicles. Toro was the two mowers that I requested last year that I ordered in March. They're still not here, and I'm not expecting them until June. So Toro is 12 to 16 months out for a place to order. Smithco or /Baker, it could possibly be this year. It's just, at the time of the quote, he was getting 3 in the spring, but probably gone.
So you're expecting the same lag in the delivery on this
Yes.
piece of equipment also? Okay, and then, with regard to how you use the current equipment that we have, like how often do you fertilize the golf course? Just curious.
It's a sprayer for mainly pesticides. We do mix liquid fertilizer in the summer months. But in 2011, we bought our current sprayer. It was used for greens only, and now we are treating greens, tees, and fairways and approaches. So it's getting a lot of use.
Sure. Okay.
And we only have one. We do have a 1998 sprayer, but that's gonna be traded in. That's only used on the rough to treat weeds. That's it. It's not calibrated for greens. It can't be calibrated for greens.
Okay. Are there any questions from committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Right, so it sounds like we have a lead time for the sprayer, but is it functional then to get us through the year? We just don't know how long it's gonna last.
Last November, I did sink $3,000 into a new pump, diaphragm, and flow meter.
Okay.
Expecting that I would not have the sprayer right away.
Okay, and so when we get the new one, can those be sold or?
No, I'm gonna keep that one.
Keep it as a
I'm
backup?
gonna keep that one for Russ, because we will not have anything to backup for the greens.
Okay.
That's the most important piece of equipment I have, is a sprayer.
And we have room in the storage for another.
Oh yeah, once we trade in the one from 98, that same years.
It's only 24 years old.
So we're trading in the 80.
1998 one.
Yeah, and we
Yes.
still have 2.
Yes.
So we're not increasing the number of sprayers?
No.
That's what I was asking. Okay, great, thanks.
Still be room.
And a new sprayer will also, it'll save me 70% pesticide cost, because it will have a GPS module on it,
The newer versions, yeah.
the new version. And they are very expensive pesticides.
Any questions from council? Okay. I would like to make a motion that we recommend to all council 2023, I have a question. 2023-5, and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, passes 3-0. Alright, next up, we have 2023-14. Which is a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the senior center and community cabin kitchen renovation project as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the same with the lowest and best bidder. This again was an item that, is discussed at budget and in our budget. Director, would you like to take the lead on that, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a project that is ongoing. As you all know, Sixmo has been awarded the contract for the architectural services and the design work for the kitchen improvements over at the senior center and the community cabin. We are in the process working with Sugar and Valley engineers, drawing up the bid documents. We are at that point now where we need to go out to bid so we can identify and award the contractors to start work on these renovations. So we're anticipating May, June, the construction work to begin and be done, and hopefully have these kitchens available for July, August. And this is using ARPA funds from 2022. Thank you. That was already approved.
Okay, so, to go back and reread, these are all ARPA funds that were allocated and encumbered, back at the process of our budget. And is there anything, Ms. Hunt, that you'd like to add? Are you excited?
Very
Excited?
Desperately needed the new kitchens, especially if you've seen the one in the community cabins.
I know, it is a little sparse, that.
We've got increasing numbers for our lunch program. So our biggest day today in probably a decade, we had 82 people for lunch. So we're having more space in the senior center kitchen.
Oh, good.
We will miss the sanitary smells coming from the kitchen, from the grease trap though.
Yeah, while you're eating, yeah, I'm
Yes.
sure that'll
Yes.
be well missed.
It is very special.
Yes.
Are there any questions from committee? Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Pinchek, since construction is super busy, especially in Northeast Ohio, will you be putting any kind of timelines on these contractors? They have so many days, months to get this done, or they're gonna have some fines levied on them because this will drag on forever.
That is the expectation, correct, talking what you're about, yes.
Any questions from council? Okay, so at this time I'd like to make a motion to recommend 2023-14 to all council and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. We are now going to discuss 2023-15, which is a resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Spring Hill parking lot renovation project as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval by the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for same with the lowest and best bidder. And again, this was also discussed in our budget. Not only this, but the addition of 2 new light poles and a few other things. So Director Pinchek, would you like to start on that, please?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. This, as stated, is the renovation of the Springville parking lot that is severely in need of a renovation. This was taken from the previous engineer's estimate, Bowen, and we use that as our estimate for this project. We anticipate the number to go up slightly according to cost today, but we won't know what that number is until we actually go out to bid. We do have $350,000, which includes, as Madam Chair mentioned, some additional items. So we are hoping that the parking lot comes in at the 250, if not a little bit more, number for the renovations. And again, with the bid process and the awarding of the bid, we're looking to work around the golf season for the renovation of the parking lot. We're looking at, same timeline, June, July-ish, to get this work done. So, which also includes the cart area, which is a gravel lot. So it would be a much improved area for our golfers.
Okay. Fred, I have a question, if I may ask you. So, you know, then how does that impact, do you think, like ballroom, how do you park the cars, you know, while that is all going on as well?
It's gonna have to be done in phases.
Yeah.
Obviously, the ballroom side's gonna have to be done one time, and then possibly some of the other side, cause the other side, the golf side's a little bit wider than that, and then they have to do where the cart storage is, hopefully first.
If I can jump in, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
So we had a meeting over there with Cuyahoga Valley engineers, and our engineer Jeff, and that was specifically addressed according to the busy season with the ballrooms, the wedding showers, golf outings, as well as the golf traffic in general, and how that could be phased, and he's going to put that in the documents himself.
Okay, so you've got a plan for all of that, and great, perfect. Okay, any questions from committee? Council? Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to recommend 2023-15 to our council and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, and that's will conclude at 7:47. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll begin finance at 7:47 p.m. President of our committee members Glassburn, Lippers, and Williamson, council members Gilchrist, Heenan, Madden, and Scarl, as well as all of our directors. Just at the beginning, they were all here. The first on the agenda is 2023-19 to amend the administrative code, chapter 179. Mayor or Mr. Upton, I assume either would like to. Mr. Upton, please. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I kind of lost my momentum there right from the start. So the ordinance before you tonight establishes the position of Economic Development Coordinator within my department. Later on this month, on the 28th, representatives from Kleinfelder and Associates and the folks that put together our Economic Development Strategic Plan will come to speak with you all about the entirety of the plan, which all members have documents for. But one of the core action items that the plan called for that we felt was important to set in motion is creation of additional capacity within my department. The plan called for the building division to add an additional staff member, which was included in Director Schofield's budget. So this would be the corresponding additional position that was called for in my department. In addition to that, just want to point out that for a long period of time, we had only a part-time economic development person that committed less than 20 hours of his time in a given week to economic development. So if you imagine that over a period of years, there's a lot of missed opportunities that we otherwise could have capitalized on. And I think that our philosophy in the mayor's drive to kind of really push and pursue economic development, we really want to bring that to the forefront and add additional capacity, bring on additional programs, specifically some incentive programs that are contemplated in the Economic Development Strategic Plan. I know that this council has a desire to create neighborhood beautification programs through appropriations that happen or are intended to happen moving forward. This additional capacity will help in that regard as well. We also are stepping up our marketing efforts in terms of economic development and really leaning into business retention and expansion. We hope to meet with at least 50 business owners this year, so that's at least one business every single week, every week of the year, so that we can glean information from them. Oftentimes when you meet with business owners, there's half a dozen or more follow-up items or connections or problems or questions to resolve. And having this staff capacity will help us have a more robust, the phrase in the business is the BRE program, which we really want to make a really robust part of our economic development. So this position would allow us to do that, and that's why we have this resolution for you.
Thank you, Director Upton. So I noticed in Cleveland.com today that Avon Lake is increasing its zoning and economic development department to something like four personnel. Cities that actually engage in economic development and don't just put a toe in, what do those departments look like?
Well, that's an apt phrase. And so those departments typically, if you look at our peer band, population 29 to 44,000, there's, 6 or 7 communities in Cuyahoga County that kind of make up that population. Typically, that's 4.5 to 6. Some have as many as 8 or 9 folks that comprise their economic development and planning functions. They can group those all together. Those staffs are more robust than we have right now. We have a planner who principally, she processes planning and zoning applications, business, licensing, the whole 9 yards, and I deal with everything else that relates to planning, economic development, and the like. So the folks that don't dip their toe in the water and actively go out and engage and just don't sit back and wait for the phone to ring, they tend to be pretty busy. That's what we want to be doing.
Is there any questions from committee? Mr. Wilbur.
We're not planning to add more contracting resources, because I know in the past they've compensated by, we didn't have obviously the economic development director position, and then we had contracted economic development. So with adding position, we expect that, we don't expect to be leveraging a contractor for economic development in the future then.
Any further questions from committee? Any questions from council? Ms. Heeman.
Thank you. It's not a question, it's a comment. Not all of us were here when I asked the part-time contractor for the Highview Market North Olmsted, and he sent out flyers. So, I think that we all agreed, I think at that time, that we needed a full-time person. We now have one. And I think that we need to give the support that we need to get that job done. I really think we are poised for redevelopment and eager to do that. So you need the personnel in place to offer the assistance to the director. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none. Again, I'm excited. This strikes me as the first time we're taking economic development seriously in a robust manner. I look forward to seeing what comes of it. So I will move that we adopt, or that we recommend 2023-19 and ask for a second. Second.
Sorry,
Ms.
second by
Williamson.
Mr. Hooper.
I jumped Mr. Scarlett, right, so we're good.
Sorry.
I'll let you
We'll
both
have
vote on
second
this if you
Yeah.
like. All those in
That
favor?
was too eager.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is recommended 3-0.
Sorry, I confused my committees.
Okay, so, 2023-20 would provide that we actually pay these employees that we're bringing on.
Yeah.
So,
They wanna be paid?
Mr. Upton, would you like to add anything further?
Those of you that didn't do the multiplication for 26 pay periods, that's the range of $65,000 to $75,000 we think is appropriate for someone with this level of experience and credential, and we're hopeful that that it lands somewhere within that threshold.
Ms. Williamson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director, they're paid almost as much as the administrative secretary, just a little bit more. Is this figure correct? The 2777, because the secretary at 2702, and the planners at. Oh, gotcha. Gotcha, okay. Well. Okay, I understand. My fault. I get it. Thank you.
So, Director Upton, my, again, loose knowledge of this field is that people in these assistant director positions don't stay there for 30 years. They tend to learn their trade, become more and more valuable, and often in the second half of their career go on to be economic development directors at either smaller communities or other communities. Is this kind of that trajectory we'd be looking at with this position?
Absolutely, I think that's a good characterization. One of my goals anywhere that I've been is to create career progression. So ideally, we fast forward 5-7 years from now, and there provides a path where someone can come in as the planner, work hard, and when the opportunity presents itself, become the coordinator. I'm not going anywhere, so I'll have to go somewhere else to become a director, right? So, just saying. No, in all seriousness, but having folks that can see themselves grow in their career keeps them in places longer, and providing that linear path of career progression for the entry level folks as well as the folks that come in. That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions from council? Ms. Heeman?
Yeah, just a comment. I think, to Director's point, that career growth, while they may, after a 5-year or 6-year period, leave us, it just really improves relationships, for us with other cities, and a commonality and a camaraderie of sorts, and I think it just enhances then, our long-term goals, I think, and more kind of county or global space. Thank you.
It's not a bad thing to be known as exporting good directors to other cities.
Are there any further comments or questions from council? Okay, seeing none, I will move to favorably recommend 2023-20 and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lippert. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Next, we have 2023-21 in the permanent budget that we have long been speaking of here in Director Cuthfert or the mayor, whichever.
I guess, would you like to start, Mayor? Okay. I tried to, there were several changes from what we went through the detailed process in December, November during that process, and took it from both the revenue and the expenditures from that point in time. So that then there's just changes to it that were being added to or deleted from the permanent budget, and also changes to the estimated resources. So, so that it'll flow similarly to how we do budget transfers. Do you want me to go through them all? Because I would be more than happy to, or?
I think that would be helpful from you or the mayor or others from the administration. But I guess my first kind of macro question on this is, in the documents we had the fund summaries, we have this, we don't have the overall revenue forecast of the different collections. Has that changed?
I had sent, this is like the printed on the wrong size, just
Right.
this and this. So some of the revenue changed because the fund balance, the beginning fund balances changed. And then some of it changed for these reasons that are listed. And these are the funds where the revenue changed because of something other than the change in beginning fund balance.
So I understand the changing of the fund balances, but are we changing our income tax forecast? Are we changing any of our collections forecasts?
Well, we did have to change, we added some grants, that we hadn't had, that we received toward the end of the year or early this year. And, there was a reduction in property tax. I don't know if you remember that we didn't have the final Schedule A from the county. And so, when it came through, they had reduced our, collection by like almost 243,000. And that's because the collectability went down, from 95.51%, what their estimate of what our current tax collectability would be, down to 94.18. So it went down like 0.5%. And so we had to adjust our revenues down in the area of property taxes. I did not adjust, the income tax collection, and I just received the January collection, which was received in February, and we're down 4% so far this year compared to the point of time last year. So I'm still watching it, but I'm not inclined to increase it. And Rita had agreed with what my assessment of the net profit was gonna be, and the withholding. So I felt pretty comfortable with it and did not want to change it compared to at this point.
Okay, let's get into then the appropriation changes, I guess.
Do you want me to go through all of them, or do you want each, like, point, so each director can discuss the changes in their area, or what would you prefer, Mr. Chair?
Fine with you, Director Copper, going ahead with these?
There's $200,000 in the Division of Information Technology. This is, we did not have, we had a huge range of varying prices from like $1 million to $200,000 that we were getting on what this rec Wi-Fi cabling and computer equipment, and they were adding the electrical component to it as well. And and that was the one that was varying dramatically. So to move forward with the rec center Wi-Fi and cabling and computer equipment, we put the $200,000 in there to accomplish that, which will improve, I think you guys talked about it at the budget hearings, why it was needed. The insurance appraisal of property, this one was not encumbered before the end of the year, and I did not realize it. So I had to put in the appropriation for this year, $20,000, and that's more than enough to pay the entire contract. But I just wanted to make sure that was in there. I think it's going to be like 15, but then in the Department of Economic Development, the full-time, making an administrative secretary from half-time to full-time, and a full-time economic development coordinator. We added the wages and benefits there. In engineering, we had made adjustments for the new engineering contract. We hadn't had those details finalized by the end of the year, so and adjusted those accordingly to what the contract was finalized at. The Department of Public Safety, this is bringing that administrative secretary up to a full-time position as well. The 259.79 is the safety wellness grant from the state. that we received. And in the police and fire area, when the fund balances, I realized that, we have more funds available in our police and fire pension funds. So I moved an additional $100,000 of pension expense out of each to be paid in the pension fund. The 264,501 is the body camera equipment, and we're proposing to replace half of the handheld radios, which total $125,000 in that amount. The dispatch, we were able to reduce the placeholder of $500,000 by leasing the Motorola equipment rather than purchasing it. And I know that that'll be coming to you soon, but we wanted to have the budget in place to accomplish that. And the lease is gonna be 5 years. It is assumable, so if we move forward with any other group dispatching, they will be able to assume this lease. And also, there's no prepayment penalty. So if they don't wanna carry a lease and they wanna pay it off, they can do that as well. And we own it at the end, so. Then, let's see. Community diversion and the court computerization fund, we had to reduce their budgets because of the beginning fund balance was less than what I had anticipated it to be. So, we made some minor changes to that. The $100,000 in Parks and Recreation is for the netted curtains for the turf field, and also to prepare space for a partnership with a medical provider. Then the Emergency Medical Services Fund has the $900,000 for the fire pumper, fire engine, fire pumper. I think that's the same thing. But that is the one that we had discussed in budget hearings, but didn't have a final idea where we were gonna pay for it from. And the fund balance in the Emergency Medical Services Fund can pay for that truck without borrowing for it. And we're not getting another squad for 2 more years, so we'll be able to make sure that we have funds available so we can pay for a squad when we need one as well. That there's a multiple year lead time on this truck. So at this point in time, so that's why, and you guys had agreed that we probably shouldn't wait any longer to put it on and get it ordered. Let's see, police and fire pension, that's the other 100 that's going in there. The 30,000 for state highway fund, that was also, the budget was lower, so I reduced the salt budget out of this fund, and then I was able to increase the salt budget in the street maintenance fund in the 282 fund. And then there's also an addition in capital outlay because of trucks that were ordered in 2022 have again been told that we have to pay more. And the increase in price for the 2 trucks then will also carry through to the 2023 trucks that are in the budget. So this is to accomplish that. The solid waste and recycling fund has a leaf vacuum equipment that attaches to our chipper truck that that was added. I don't know if that was discussed during budget hearings or not, but it'll come for you to purchase, so. Then the FEMA grant, there was an advance out that was budgeted for to repay the general fund for an advance that we didn't do, so we can't transfer that back out. So I reduced that amount. The local fiscal recovery fund, this is an adjustment for the actual unencumbered fund balance, and, the administration and finance spent, a good amount of time making sure that we had, because there's a lot going on in that fund, the projects are accounted for, in the right lines and all that, and in more detail. And, the ending fund balance should be $261,000 in that fund, because we have 175 for year 2 of, ARPA 49 and 50 police officer. And, the remaining portion of councils, 216, minus the 80 for traffic lights. And then we put 50 in the budget because that was the number that council felt comfortable with trying to make improvements to council chambers for the sound system. So there's, I believe, 68,000, so 175 and 68 is the number that should be in there. And then in the fire station bond retirement, the ending fund balance was higher. So I needed to increase the amount that we're gonna transfer to the GO bond retirement fund. Once you close these sub-accounts, it has to go to the general obligation bond retirement fund or another bond retirement fund we have, but we only have the GO one left that has any debt in it. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, does anyone else from administration want to add anything before reading questions? Okay, start with committee. Are there any questions from committee? Mr. Lumber.
Can you clarify again why the bond debt was higher than expected for the fire station?
It's not higher, the fund balance after we paid off the debt, the end of the year was higher than, so to transfer it to make the fire bond retirement fund 0, I needed to increase the transfers out in the budget to go to the general obligation bond retirement fund.
So we had extra money to get it transferred
Well,
out?
yeah, we had a higher fund balance, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions from committee? Any further questions from council? Let me start, I'll go with this in the page order. So at the recreation center, the IT improvements, did we budget anything for that project? I thought we had budgeted something, but not.
In the
full
IT
amount.
budget, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi cabinet and whatnot. Did we previously budget anything towards this project?
When we had our budget hearings, we talked as if we had budgeted some in there, but then as we went through the budget, we found out, because originally we were talking about putting 1.2 million in there because there's some electrical issues that we were gonna try to solve with that, but we realized we don't have a handle on what the electrical issues are at this point, so we pulled that, but in pulling that, we accidentally, in our community, we accidentally pulled the money that we talked about in there, so that 200,000 was discussed a little bit in the temporary budget, but it wasn't actually in the budget itself. We thought it was and it wasn't, and we went back and looked at the budget.
Okay. So, Director Cobb, for this 200,000 is coming from the general fund and being put into the rec fund, or what, or how's this being paid for?
It's being paid for out of general fund dollars, Mr. Chair.
So for the, Director Copper, for the fire and the police pension funds, those funds are from dedicated property tax revenue?
Right, there's a 0.3 mil
Of our inside?
mandatory
Okay.
levy for one for police and one for fire. And it usually pays about 1/4 of the pension expense. But, there was higher monies in the ending fund balance than and I don't know if maybe we didn't transfer last year or whatever, but I realized that, we should pay it out of that fund when we can and use those dollars and free up the general fund money for resources, for all the other expenditures when we can.
Okay. That was the question I had was, since that's correlated to the other property tax revenues, if you had extra there, that would imply we have more elsewhere as well. Okay, that makes sense, if we didn't make adjustments,
Yeah, that was in the
After
fund
the
balance
appraisal.
piece, if you look at it, yeah.
okay. On the next page, we have the dispatch 5-year lease to own. I don't know if this is Director Schofield or who might address this, but how do we go from 500 to 225 and get the job done on this?
If I may, the 500 was our estimated purchase for the entire system at one shot. So it actually had gone up to 600,000 by the time all was said and done. So we asked Sergeant Fiorato at police to go back and look at the lease options, and the proposal that came back from Motorola allowed us to lease to own at a much lower upfront cost. So I think that's that annual payment.
It's like 162 something, almost 153.
Yeah. On average, it's about 168, I think, and change.
Okay.
And then we've added the 125 to split the cost between this year and next year on the handheld radios that have to be entirely replaced.
Mr. Lippert?
Yeah, so how much are we paying extra overall for leasing?
$80,000.
80,000 more, but spread out over 5 years
Right.
instead of.
Well, and Mr. Chair, may I?
Please.
There's also, unless, Mayor, there's a lot of balls in the air right now. So, but we still needed to move forward, so we felt that this was a better way so that we're not investing $600,000 cash flow in something that may become somebody else's at some point. We felt that this was a fair way of moving through that, and if decisions are made, we can stop the lease and pay whatever balance is left, and then you don't incur those interest costs. Or whoever if we move to something else, Westcom, whoever, then they can make that decision whether we do it that way, or they could just continue to pay for the equipment on the lease program. It's assumable.
Yeah, so it's an $80,000 cost, and there's optionality benefits of leasing versus buying that.
Right, yeah, extenuating circumstances.
So if I understood correctly, you said that over a 5-year period, the net advantage of buying would have been $80,000, but by leasing, we have more flexibility with options moving forward.
Correct.
Where is this 275 going? What is it going to?
So part of it, like Director Schofield said, is going to the Motorola.
To the lease for the 4 consoles, the radio consoles for dispatch. And then about $125,000 is going to replace half of the handheld radios, do it this year, and then do the second half next year. Again, trying to spread out the cost of that significant investment over the 2 years instead of putting it all in for next year.
Do we have, I know the state government has not provided much detail on the governor's proposals regarding 911 dispatch, but do we have any sense for what those are and how we would be in the best position to take advantage of those and not pay for something twice?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the one thing I do know is that if the state does indeed pay for the marks fees, the annual fees will save about $12,000 a year on that. That's what we're paying right now, just on those fees. As far as investment in next gen 911, I don't even know what that is at this point. So like you waiting for what that language actually says.
And Mr. Chairman, Director Schofield and I did have a meeting with our state representative Sweeney 2 weeks ago now, and spoke directly to her about these issues. And she herself, who sits on the finance committee, is keenly aware of North Olmsted and quite frankly all of our West Shore sister cities' current situation. And she assured us that she's going to make sure that she stays on top of whatever's coming down from the governor's, I guess you would say, sort of, his vision that he laid out at the state address and these budget priorities, that if it comes to fruition then in the State House, that, we will be notified, I think, in a timely fashion. So I feel like we were able to communicate early about our needs and concerns, and that we have a partner in Columbus who will be looking out for that.
If I may also add, the Marks radio system, everything we're procuring right now ties in and is compatible with that Mark system, which will become the universal system. So whether it's the consoles that we're talking about now for dispatch, or the body-worn cameras, or dash cams, or the new handhelds, all of those will be compatible. So if by chance this next Gen 911 investment will cover that kind of equipment as well, it could be we could take back from that lease and save some money there. I just don't know enough yet.
Okay. Going on a different tack, to page 4, Parks and Recreation, the turf field nets. Where is that being funded from?
That's being funded from their operations, from recreation operations. And even though their revenue that changes, if you looked on the schedule, their fund balance was lower than what expected, but we hadn't gotten formal notification from the county for the grant. So there's 300 and some thousand of monies. Remember, we went forward with the turf, and then we're gonna be requesting reimbursement and then getting those funds. So now that the grant is in place, we'll for sure get that revenue. So that's additional revenues in the fund, over and above what we had talked about in their programming and their tax dollars.
So this is ultimately being funded from the grant, or because we have the grant, we have extra money available?
In theory, it's being funded through operations, and the grant is just reimbursing the $299,000 that we already spent. I mean, because that's what it's for, but the timing of it is such that we already encumbered it in the fund balance and had started on it because we had to, before we got formal award of the grant in writing and documentation in the contract to sign. So then I could include those in estimated resources. So
what portion approximately of this 100,000 is the turf field nets, and what is the capital outlay to allow for a medical partner?
So the netting system that we're anticipating is gonna come in between anywhere between $50,000 and $90,000, depending on the company, the design of it, the gauge of the net, if it's mechanical, if it's a walk pull design, stuff like that. And the build out is anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. That includes carpeting and door frames and painting and electrical and those types of things.
Is this a feature that was anticipated with the turf field, or we decided this was an option that we decided not to do before, or how did this?
No, this has always been something that we talked about for safety of our patrons that are using the turf. So what the netting is going to do is going to separate the track from the field. So when we have programming, active programming on the field, we'll have netting all around the field. So patrons that are members can walk in or run the track at that same time. So protecting them from balls or equipment or such from going into them while they're using the track.
I guess what I'm missing is why is this a item that's later in the process and not part of the whole package that we originally did?
The package that we originally went out for was the turf itself.
Right.
So that was the funding that we approached the county with. The netting was something that we were always going to anticipate providing out of the recreation fund.
Are there other additional items coming for this field house like this that are main features that are not yet?
No, I mean, there's a cart that's already been, you know, a cart that pulls the groomer around, but that's beyond that. You're just looking at normal equipment that would be used indoor, outdoor, soccer goals, lacrosse goals, balls, programming supplies that we would normally buy anyways.
Mr. Lumber?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ask that we make sure we, from an operations standpoint, we do kind of what we were doing with skating and what we did with Springdale. Make sure that we treat the turf field as its own cost center.
Absolutely.
To work through as we kind of manage this and see how it grows over time.
Sure.
Carrie knows I love to ask how much are we paying down from the,
Charters for services.
yes, general obligation funds that are capital outlay that are being provided to have this as an option, so let's make sure that we're keeping all those things in its own cost center
So
for operations.
if I may add, just real quick, I mean, the $306,000 that Director Copper was referring to was all county grant money. So we're looking at subsidizing or adding to that for the programming supplies that we could do anyways, whatever we had down there. So if we were looking at different things, such as an example, if the gymnastics program that was down there, all the chalk and stuff was eating away at our rates and our HVAC system, and we don't have that issue anymore. So that's expense that we won't have to accommodate for. For those of you who haven't seen the turf yet, and you're all welcome to the grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony, which is next Saturday at 1 o'clock. Every person that has walked down there, from our potential medical partner to school personnel to the general resident, has been in shock and awe and how they can't wait to use it. So
No, I mean, I appreciate.
I just wanted to let you guys know.
No, I appreciate that. I think
well
what
received.
else I wanted to say, Mr. Chair, is just make sure, like, and if you wanna compensate for things that you used to have expenses for when it was different programming, that's valuable information too.
Sure.
But like, as a council, we're making a conscious decision to change
Right.
what we're providing for a service, and we wanna see over time how that's paid off. So, you know, one, we can justify our vote, and two, we can, you know, make sure that we're growing that to the best of its potential. So we should treat it like its own cost center and understand that, you know, we're on the ground
Right.
starting this up, but, you know,
Right.
10 years from now, people will see this as, you know, a robust asset to them. So, thanks.
On a different note, our next topic, so Director Copper, if I understood correctly, the capital outlay for street maintenance, we have the 74,000 increases for vehicles, trucks, etc. Are we now locked into those prices, or does it just
That's Mr.
keep
Service
on
Director.
rolling? Director Carney.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Perhaps it was frustration in Director Copper's phrasing, or maybe these are not, or these are rapidly changing things. But the way she described the 74,000 was that we had committed to purchase vehicles, but then those vehicles increased in price.
Oh, sure.
And so, are we locked into a price now, or does the fund continue?
No. We plan on getting, it's all covered and paid for, hopefully, and
It's
unless
not
they
paid
throw us a
for
curveball,
until we get
what I'm saying, but I mean, it's, marked in our paperwork over where I sit. So, that's all I care about. But I don't see anything going higher, it depends on how fast they put this stuff together. The trucks, there's something, everything's crazy right now, but I'm not foreseeing what's happening right now to be ongoing.
But we can't make a purchase agreement and give money, we just have to wait until they've manufactured a truck, then we get to buy it?
We've done it
is that
before
kinda
and
how
come
this
back.
goes?
I was going to cut you off, but we've done it before, like last year, and prices, 80-something thousand, they came back at 93,000. I mean, there's nothing they can do supposedly,
Mr. Chair, did not our fleet manager also say that, if we didn't agree to the increases, then they would,
Write us off.
like would pull the orders. So that was something that was also going on, with this particular thing. And then they were added, and these are the 550s.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman? That's correct. I mean, the contracts, particularly last year, when the market was fluctuating with the supply issues and supply chain issues and everything was going through the roof. And a lot of those guys got burned with the contracts that they had entered into that didn't have clauses to opt out or increase. So we began to see here, and I'm familiar with other situations where they build in there that there's some flexibility on it. And if you don't want the new price, all right, well, then we'll just sell it to somebody else. They own that market and they've got you. And it's kind of the pendulum swinging back for them getting beaten up last year on delivery where they got hit pretty hard. So I hope that changes here in the economy as things kind of.
I suppose this is Director Carney as well, the leaf collector.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us more about that? Does that put us in a position to supplement what our contractor does, or what capability does that put us at?
Well, like I told the mayor and the finance director, 3ZA, they have 15 crews out, 15 trucks. But we need one year round, like, for sucking up the people's ditches and for along Stearns Road and for throughout the city. And also like after December, second week of December when they're done with the leaves, you can go out there and get it around. So we're just trying to do it and start cutting back on maintenance for the building of all the trenches. I mean, the ditches, it's a lot of work that's gonna save. It's gonna cut down flooding issues and keep the water flowing. And maybe get our feet wet about how we can proceed doing it in-house, but that's not gonna happen in the foreseeable future.
I got one.
Mr. Weber.
So do we have, is there any, not long-term or not immediate, but in the near term, would that give us any ability to, is this 3Z contract always like fixed costs, or is there ever where they have extended out an extra week where we get?
No, they, it's a fixed cost, but their contract is up right now. But we cannot do that right now in-house. We don't have the manpower or the machinery.
So, yeah, and just to follow up that, so what would happen on like December 31st if we had a warm spell and the trees fell pretty late this year?
We would have been out there today if we had that. I mean, we'll be out there using it.
Okay, but in the past, everything would have just been sitting for
Sitting
everybody
there,
else to clean up
right.
all over winter.
Or else we're out there in the summertime with rakes trying to get the ditches clean.
Yeah.
And not just, ditches that you see on the main streets, but like throughout the city. So it's gonna be a great asset, a great tool, and we never had one before, and I just think it's a great idea to invest in it and see how far we go with it. See how much for a while we get.
On the last topic on my list, Director Kopfer, you were discussing local fiscal recovery, and you mentioned what some numbers should be. Is this document going to be amended at a later point to reflect those numbers, or did I misunderstand?
The 175, for the 350,000 for, ARPA spending for police officer 49 and 50. half of it was to be used this year. Well, it was for funding for 23 and 24. So we just split it in half. It doesn't cover, like, one officer is like 108,000 if it was for the whole year, with benefits and everything. But we just cut it in half, and those funds, and the expenditure is in the general fund, 49 and 50 are in the budget. So then the general fund will invoice the ARPA fund for that 175 and to cover 49 and 50 if that happens in the general fund, if they're hired. And then the other so 175 is reserved for 2024. Then the other item, council, if you recall, had, was it 216?
Well, we originally put in 216 for the project, and that's been cut back in council during the temporary budget, put in $80,000 for street lighting, and then we were reserving $50,000, so that was kind of what was talked about for potential upgrades to this room and our chambers, which left a net or whatever 216 minus 80 minus 50 is, and good at math. That's how much is yet to be determined, so that's not showing up in this item.
So there is monies to be encumbered at a later point when it's decided what else we'll do with those funds through council, and then 175 for next year. But
So I'm asking more narrowly, is this document going to need to be amended prior to passage to reflect any of those items we just discussed? Those will occur in later transfer.
correct, yes.
Okay, that was a lot to discuss and digest. Are there further questions or comments from council? Given how much there was there, my inclination is to, at a minimum, hold this until before the meeting next week to hold if there are no changes, to hold a committee to just approve it then, but to give members of council until Friday roughly to decide if they have any further thoughts, changes, or whatnot. But is there any concern from the administration if we follow that trajectory?
No concern, if the path that is that you'd like to still then continue to have it on for second reading for that meeting then.
I don't immediately have a change, but again, there was a lot of items discussed, and I want to give folks an opportunity, so.
Mr. Chair.
Director Coffin?
And our intent is once this is passed, we'll give council like the final detailed budget so that, because it is entered in a detailed format, so that if you wanna track, I know some council people like to have the final budget document there all in one place so that they can monitor their divisions and stuff. So we'll do that, and also revenue as well. So you'll have a final permanent appropriations, revenue, and expenditure.
Okay, well then, I will recommend that we, or move that we hold this in committee and encourage folks to let me know if they have any additional thoughts prior to Friday so that we can schedule committees on Friday decisions prior to next week. So, second, the motion to hold, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will hold that for now, 3-0. Again, tell me before Friday morning so that we can schedule committee accordingly. Thank you, everyone. And that will conclude finance at 8:40. My apologies, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to begin the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting at 8:40 on February 14th of 2023. Committee members are Madden, Glassburn, and Gilchrist. Present also are council members Heeman, Limpert, Scarrow, and Williamson. Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, HR Director, Economic Director, Safety Director, Service Director, Recreation Director, and Special Assistant to the Mayor, and guests. The first on the agenda is to discuss resolution 2023-9, resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide new pavement markings to various streets and locations in the city, as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Anyone from the administration would like to speak on?
Mr. Chair, I'll speak on behalf of this and extend apologies on behalf of Engineer Kolarski. There's what I understand, a pretty large accident on 271, and last I heard from him, he was in gridlock. So, additionally, I'd ask that 2023, 9, 10, and 11, we can kind of discuss them concurrently, because the map that you have in front of you covers all of them. This is provided by our engineer. The streets, if you look at your legend in the lower right-hand corner, they give you the streets and what their treatment is, if you will: crack seal, rejuvenation, and then asphalt resurfacing, and the corresponding budget to go along with them. The top right-hand corner, the numbered streets are streets where you can't fit their whole name within the short space on the map for that. And so this is standard fare. Crack sealing, resurfacing, and asphalt repaving allows our city engineer to solicit bids and subject to the Board of Control's approval to the contract to get these streets done this year. Happy to answer any questions as best as I'm able to with respect to crack sealing, rejuvenation, and the resurfacing program, Mr. Chair.
So am I understanding that that would also pertain to the other resolutions that we're discussing?
Just 9, 10, and 11, Mr. Chairman. 2023-12 is a separate authority that Director Carney has put forward with respect to concrete bids. So I just asked that 9, 10, and 11 be discussed concurrently with the map that you have in front of you.
Mr. Chair, the rejuvenation portion, if I'm not mistaken, is part of the street bid.
Correct. And
So that's part of that.
And we have solicited funding from the county to partake in part of that cost share. And that's already been paid to the county.
$80,000.
Correct.
And we're using permanent improvement street and storm funds for the capital portion of it. And then street maintenance and repair funds for the pavement marking and crack sealing, because those are maintenance costs.
Kind of stumped me here, I think.
Perfect.
So are we saying to hold in committee?
I would just, no, I would ask that this be advanced so that we can.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this is something we do every year, and this is just a different ask. Every year, we do so much. Last year we did for asphalt resurfacing was 1,270,000. This is pretty much all same as last year, repetitive. The pavement marking is a little higher because of increase in inflation and everything. Everything else is pretty much ballpark as to what was last year and the year before, and this is something we have to do every year.
So, based on the discussion, questions from
Mr. Chair, if I may. Director Carney's gonna tire of this question. I will ask it every time we get to this. So for the rejuvenation and for all of these, quite frankly, are we defined as to how much we can do by our personnel, our money, or what is our most limiting factor in terms of if we wanted to do more, what would we need more of than what is scheduled for this year?
I would say a combination of both money and personnel. Cause I mean, there's only, so many men and they all have different duties and it takes time and some of this is subbed out also, but so it's also money, but for what we do in-house, there's only so much they can do in an 8-hour day.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Sorry.
Whoever, the street portion, like in the budget, the asphalt resurfacing and rejuvenation, those are capital costs, so, and they are outsourced. We've never done those in-house because those are like major street repairs. The crack sealing,
That $85,000 is also outsourced.
correct, but we do some,
We do our own.
a little bit, but
We do
it's
a lot.
more repairs and prepping rather than the major crack sealing on the major streets. Like Lorraine Road is dangerous, it takes time to do crack sealing, and I think that the 85,000 covers all the main thoroughfares. And we do the crack sealing on the side streets, is my
For the most
recollection.
part, but we also got an issues. But to what the chairman's question or Mr. Glassman's question was, it's money and it's personnel. This here in front of you, most of it's all subbed out. But for us, we can't do it all. In-house.
So my follow-up question to that would be, we have the demarcation here between rejuvenation first priority and second priority. What, not what determines what's in each, but what determines as to whether we get to the second priority? Is that second priority because of time, because of money, what?
Money.
Mr. Chair, I guess I would be interested in as to, to the extent that rejuvenation is, economically worth it for us to save and do this. I mean, we're only putting $60,000 in. I guess the question is are we at the point where we're already getting all the good value, or does putting more money towards that, is there still surplus value to be gained if I'm not talking too obtusely?
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Glassman's question, we have already gone out to RFP and have evaluated, and we're checking references to have a comprehensive data-driven pavement management system implemented in our city. So I would offer that we don't know the answer to the councilman's question, and through our endeavors with our new pavement management practices, we'll be able to fine-tune the right remedy at the right time for the right roads to lengthen the overall life of our roads between major capital improvements. So I would say to the councilman's question that we continue to do as is this year, because next year is when we'll have those answers based upon our new pavement management practices that we're implementing as an administration.
Thank you, done for now.
Okay. I'll support you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Kearney, for the benefit of our new council members, could you just take a brief moment, and describe some of the equipment that we own that does some of this work that, our employees are able to do? And that clearly, even though we have this great equipment, we we still need to outsource, but, I don't think some of them know what really we have, and I just love the Durapatcher. You know, just a quick rundown, I think, for.
The Durapatcher's a great tool, but it doesn't do a lot, you can't do a lot with, it can't do a major street with it, it can't do a major street repair. And we have a roller, but it's a small roller, which is gonna be using that in 1 lane, and you do the whole street with it. And we have crack sealers, which we go out pretty much daily during the summer, and take care of either people's complaints or what we try to, what we have on the list.
So, yeah, we do, I think, have, very good equipment, we've invested, money in very good equipment, but it's more from a service standpoint than, a plan, a streets plan.
Agreed, it's mostly for maintenance and
Correct.
day-to-day upkeep,
So,
not a major road repair.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have the street ratings that we went off of for prioritizing these streets? Do we have
The
one?
street ratings were contained on a static Excel document, except for this, the capital plan that engineered the Finco, the incumbent engineer. And you can imagine with about 6 weeks to develop scope plans, orient themselves to a new city, there wasn't time to reinvent the wheel this year. So these were set in place by engineer Filarski's predecessor.
So what number did we cut off, or what number did they cut off?
I can get that information from Mr. Session.
Thanks.
Any other questions from council? Okay, so seeing no other questions or comments, I would move to favorably recommend resolution 2023-9 council and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Glassburn. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading this.
Motion passes 3-0. And next is resolution 2023-10, resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for the bids for the award of a contract to provide crack sealing on various streets at various locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of board of control of the contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Based on the prior conversation. Any other comments from committee members? Any comments from council? Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, I move to favorably recommend resolution 2023-10 to council and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. And next is resolution 2023-11. Resolution authorizing city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract for the 2023 street resurfacing project as detailed in the specifications on file, authorizing the mayor following approval of the board of control to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. And again, based on prior conversation, any comments from the committee? And any comments from council? Seeing none, I move to favorably recommend resolution 2023-11 to council. Ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 3-0. And finally, last is resolution 2023-12, resolution authorizing director of public service to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to purchase concrete materials and related supplies for the year 2023, as detailed in the specifications on file, authorizing the mayor, following approval of board of control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is another one of the, just the previous resolutions, all yearly, chore tasks that we have to do just to go out for bid, so we have copies for the year.
One question I do have is, do we consult with surrounding cities to check on what vendors?
Most suburbs around this area use the same three vendors, like you're not getting no, like the ones from downtown out here usually. So they're pretty much one or two of the top three, but they all use the same one. But, is that your question?
So, and do we try to select maybe a North Olmsted-based contractor if available?
This is for concrete, sort of concrete trucks.
So nobody
Right.
meets that criteria? Any other questions from the committee? Any other questions from council? Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Terrific, Arnie. So we're just buying the concrete and our guys are doing the work.
Yes, sir.
Or girls.
Just say people.
It's an entire fine workforce.
Alright, seeing no other questions or comments, I move to favorably recommend resolution 2023-12 to council and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. And
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Transportation Committee,
Still talking.
57.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I thought you were done.
Next generation caucus microphones will only come out.
Yeah, we see Mark.
Our mics is-
Yeah, we have to.
Some of that